So in the recent debate, there was another interesting exchange that happened between Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, where Kamala was asking Elizabeth Warren to join her in wanting to basically kick President Donald Trump, off of Twitter, because Kamala Harris believes that Donald Trump's rhetoric that on there is so toxic, and he's saying a lot of things that are offensive and stuff. I don't want to give too much away though, so check out the segment, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. So check this out.
What we're talking about is a grave injustice when rules apply to some but not equally to all, and in particular when the rules that apply to the powerless don't apply to the powerful. And so, Senator Warren, I just want to say that I was surprised to hear that you did not agree with me that on this subject of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies, when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account, that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me, because here we have Donald Trump, who has 65 million Twitter followers, and is using that platform as the President of the United States to openly intimidate witnesses, to threaten witnesses, to obstruct justice. And he and his account should be taken down. We saw in El Paso that shooter in his manifesto was informed by how Donald Trump uses that platform. And this is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
Thank you. Senator Warren, you can respond.
So, look, I don't just want to push Donald Trump off Twitter. I want to push him out of the White House. That's our job.
Join me in saying that his Twitter account should be shut down.
Let's figure out
No?
why it is that we have had laws on the books for antitrust for over a century, and yet for decades now. We've all called on how the big drug companies are calling the shots in Washington, big ag, how the gun industry, big tech. We really need to address the elephant in the room, and that is how campaigns are financed.
You can't say you're corporate responsibility if it doesn't apply to everyone.
I announced this morning that I'm not going to take any money from big tech executives, from Wall Street executives. We've already agreed, Bernie and I, we're not taking any money from big pharma executives. You can't go behind closed doors and take the money of these executives and then turn around and expect that these are the people who are actually finally going to enforce the laws. We need campaign finance rules
Thank you,
and
Senator
practices
Warren. Senator Harris?
that support us all.
You can't. It does not represent a system of justice to say that the rules will apply differently to different people. This is a matter, you are saying, of holding big tech accountable. Yes. Holding big tech accountable because they have an outsized influence on people's perceptions about issues, and they actually influence behaviors. We all have to agree this is their power. It is immense.
Senator Klobuchar, let me bring you in here. Your response.
I'm not finished. And so what I am saying is that it seems to me that you would be able to join me in saying the rule has to apply to Twitter the same way it does to Facebook.
Look, I think all of the rules should apply across the board. I don't have a problem with that.
So you will
what
join
I
me in
do
saying
have
Twitter
a
should shut down that
problem with
account.
Is that if we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big tech, then we should ask if people are taking money from the big tech executives. If we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big drug companies, we should ask if people are financing their campaigns by taking money from big drug executives. If we are going to talk about Wall Street and having some serious regulation over Wall Street, we should ask if people are funding their campaigns by taking money from those executives.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Let's bring you in here.
I would like to have a different.
So clearly, you could see there, Kamala was constantly pressuring her, and Warren was being very evasive, and she did not want to respond to that question directly. She kept talking. She kept going back to her faux aggressive, well, somewhat progressive talking points that I don't truly believe that she believes in, but she puts them out there. So her talking points, when they're talking points, they're not progressive because you're just repeating a bunch of shit that you've rehearsed. But she was clearly being evasive, and she just didn't want to respond to it. And the bigger point is this shows the desperation of Kamala Harris to want to, because listen, Kamala Harris is not gaining any kind of traction in this primary. After she got destroyed by what's her name, Tulsi Gabbard, not the last debate, but the debate before that, because Gabbard wasn't in the last debate, but the debate before that, she got fucking destroyed by Tulsi, and she hasn't been able to regain her footing back, and now she's trying to desperately, hang on to some sort of niche, issue. And the issue is going after Trump. So what she's doing is she's using Trump as like a proxy to get Democrats to be like, oh, well, you're not weak on going after Trump. I am, and this is what I'm doing. So it's just a ploy for her to try to one-up Trump and pretend as if she's so good at taking on Trump, and her way is to try and kick him off Twitter. It's so ridiculous and stupid. It's just, it doesn't solve anything. But anyway, So let's just get more into the details here. It says Kamala Harris took issue with what she calls, quote, a grave injustice, and she explained how the rules apply to some but not equally to all, and in particular the rules that apply to the powerless but not the powerful. So this is her attempt at pretending to be like standing up for the little guy and portraying herself as like, oh, I'm a fighter for, the average Joe and the average Jane out there, because they don't get treated fairly on Twitter. Now, to be fair, she's correct. She's not wrong, but the solution to that is not getting Trump off of Twitter, because getting Trump off of Twitter, it's not like he's going to be. It's not like he's going to be like some sort of megaphone for him is going to be taken away. Now, to be fair, he is, like, Twitter is a big megaphone. Obviously, it's not a literal megaphone, but it is a big thing it's a big tool that he uses to get his message out there. But that doesn't mean that if he isn't on Twitter, that he's not going to be able to just go and give speeches in the Oval Office, or go speeches at rallies, or speeches on the White House lawn, or whatever, in front of the White House, wherever the hell he gives speeches. The West Wing, not the West Wing. I don't know, one of those rooms that they go and get speeches in. It's not like he's not going to be able to go and do that, and she's portraying it as if, oh, well, I'm standing up for the little guy, and the solution, my solution for getting rid of, fighting for the little guy is to get rid of the biggest bully out there, or whatever, however she wants to put it. And that's her mentality. She wants to try and take on the big bully Donald Trump. And that's her thing. That's her shtick at the moment. And again, she's desperate to do that. She's desperate to get some sort of, make some sort of niche for herself and get herself attention by portraying herself as taking on Trump, because other people in the primary aren't doing the same thing. So she's creating this kind of this thing for herself as if she's taking on Trump, even though she's at the moment has no chance to take on Donald Trump in a general election. And then so she gets into detail about how the rules around, quote, the rules around corporate responsibility with big tech companies, especially in regards to suspending Donald Trump's Twitter account, and why Warren doesn't agree with her. So yeah, she's getting into that, and this is the whole idea of the rules around corporate responsibility or accountability, whatever the hell term she uses. It is not the responsibility of big tech companies to restrict the free speech rights of people. Now, again, Donald Trump is getting rid of Donald Trump on Twitter. I get it. Like, he has abused the platform. He has abused it by declaring war on there, and he's poking and prodding at Kim Jong-un, the head of North Korea, and stuff, and all that shit. He's trying to declare war on Twitter. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, no, I get it, and I get that's a terms of service violation. I understand that whole thing, but anybody that thinks that this is like some sort of, what did she say, grave injustice, like, it's not. It's not going to fix anything to get Trump off of Twitter. And at the end of the day, what you are advocating for, because even if you're doing it to Donald Trump, who's got the whatever, does he have the most followers ever? I don't know, probably not. But whatever, 65 million followers, however many followers he has in that range. I don't know how much it is now, but whatever, number of millions and millions of followers he has, his existence on Twitter is just as important as anybody else's. And getting rid of him will create the standard for getting rid of anybody else and everybody else. And as somebody who's constantly on Twitter and follows, keeps track of who follows me and who doesn't follow me, I always see people getting kicked off Twitter, and they're people that are so they were on Twitter. They got kicked off for, I don't know, whatever bullshit reason probably, and then they had to get back on under another username, and then they keep getting kicked off. They keep getting kicked off. They keep getting once again and again and again. So this is a situation where people, and again, the reasons that they initially get kicked off for are bullshit. That's something that happened to me too, and it's something that but a lot of these things it's happening. It's because Twitter is they're so clueless about how to monitor the platform. And I know it's not easy. It's not like if I had to deal with people on Twitter, handling a platform and getting rid of people on Twitter who are violating whatever terms of service that they shouldn't be violating. But at the same time, it's a matter of dealing with the matter of free speech and whether you have the right to be on there and say things that you should be able to say. So yes, Donald Trump, I understand the idea of getting rid of Donald Trump because he's violating a terms of service. They're also saying that he shouldn't be allowed, nor any politician should be allowed to block people on Twitter, because then you're suppressing their free speech to complain to you, which is their representative, whether it's a president, because the president's representing us, whether it's your representative within Congress, Senate, or the president, or whatever. You shouldn't be allowed to block them, because then you're suppressing their ability to have free speech. And so I get it. I understand the idea of wanting to get rid of him because he did violate those terms. But at the same time, again, it's not going to do anything to fix the ultimate problem that is Donald Trump being a crazy lunatic. He's still going to be able to find ways to say what he says and do what he does. So it's not going to change anything. And Kamala Harris is, she's, I don't know. She's obviously not, she's so desperate that she's just willing to just latch onto any old fucking random shtick that she can find, but niche that she can find, so that she can go out there and advocate for it and pretend as if she's different from everybody else. This is the same thing that Beto O'Rourke was doing when the last debate, when he was talking about how he wants to do a gun confiscation or ban on guns, or something like that. And that's something that's polling very, very low. This is something that Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk was talking about. And he was talking about how it's ridiculous to advocate for something like, because it's so, it's not even polling well. It's not something that people are asking for right now. Now they are talking about regulations on guns, because maybe it's even majority of NRA members, for example, are advocating for that. So, but when it comes down to it, this is it's not the, if you poll people, how many people are going to go out there and say yeah, totally, let's get Donald Trump off of Twitter? That's not going to fly. People aren't going to be in favor of that, because they know that they've probably gone through the same exact thing, or they I don't know, maybe they know somebody that went through the same exact thing, right? So especially if you're on Twitter, let's just say people that are always on Twitter, right? Poll them and ask them, should Donald Trump get kicked off Twitter? Honestly, I don't think a majority of people would be in favor of that. Now, if you ask partisans and people that are oh, I hate Trump because he's Trump and I just want to get rid of him, I want to shut him up, they would be in favor. But I think if you ask large majority of Americans, people on the left, people on the right, independents in the middle, whatever, non-political, apolitical. I think if you ask people, I think majority of them polled would say that they would not be in favor of Trump getting kicked off Twitter, because they wouldn't think that it would solve the problem of what is Donald Trump and his dangerous rhetoric. But at the same time, they know it would affect all other people that are on Twitter and that are saying things and that are getting kicked off Twitter for bullshit reasons. Now, again, Kamala Harris talks to that and she says oh yeah, well, it's rules apply to some but not equally to all, and in particular the rules that apply to the powerless but not the powerful. But you can't make these decisions as a whole thing, powerful, powerless, and at the end of the day, you need to allow free speech for everybody. and you need to allow people to be able to speak their piece. Now, if they do it in the wrong way, I understand getting rid of them. But again, a lot of people are kicked off of social media and Twitter for bullshit reasons. People get their Twitter accounts, let alone YouTube accounts, let alone whatever social media accounts, they get these things restricted and smeared as whatever. Like there's YouTube accounts that are YouTube, like for example, like RT is like it's a whatever. It's a foreign agent or whatever, but just because this whole hysteria about Russia, and that's fine. I mean, like they are Russian, that's fine. But I mean, like they portray it as like this big this boogeyman because it's Russia, and they do the same exact thing with everybody on Twitter who doesn't put out the talking points that people want. So Russian agent or Russian bots or whatever. So it's like everybody is something because they portray that person on Twitter as being that way when they're not. So the person can be from America, United States, whatever, and they're called a Russian bot, and it's just ridiculous. And people get away with saying that shit, and it should not be allowed. And at the end of the day, it's really, really unfortunate how Kamala Harris wants to latch onto this idea when she just can't gain traction on anything else. She couldn't gain traction on Medicare for all. She couldn't gain traction on any other policy, tuition-free college on stuff. So she's going with this because she's that desperate to find something to, gain a certain audience to support her, I guess. And then she explains how Trump has 65 million followers and uses that platform as president to openly intimidate witnesses, to threaten witnesses, and distract from destroy. I don't know. I think I wrote this wrong. Threaten witnesses, and then obstruct justice. Yeah, so obstruct justice. Yeah, I mean that's a perfectly fine complaint. But is that? I mean, I don't know. is that I don't know what the terms of service of Twitter are. I mean, and mostly it comes down to threatening violence and stuff. Which again, he did that regarding threatening war and stuff. So it's like. I understand, I get it. The terms of service he has violated, but again, it's not an issue this is not an issue of importance where you want to get rid of Donald Trump because it's going to affect everybody else, and it already is affecting everybody else. So you're going to continue to perpetuate the system. And then she claims how, for example, the El Paso shooter in Texas, which was a mass shooting that recently happened, the El Paso shooter's manifesto, where he was informed by how Donald Trump uses that platform, and she made the point that this is a matter of safety and corporate responsibility. Therefore, Twitter should be held accountable and shut down. So she's talking about how this is a matter of corporate responsibility and safety. I mean. So now we're not safe if certain people have Twitter? I don't know. It's such a slippery slope, and it's a slippery slope with the idea of getting rid of Donald Trump too. Again, you're obstructing somebody's free speech, and in the case of Donald Trump, he can go and give a speech, so it's not going to matter. But it's again, it's going to affect everybody else too. So it's not like it's just get rid of Donald Trump on Twitter, all of our problems are solved. No, that doesn't work like that. And using the El Paso shooter as a manifesto, how many people are truly using Twitter to lead them to going and doing a mass shooting? I don't understand the connection there. It doesn't make any sense. So he saw how Donald Trump uses that platform, and then what? What does that have to do with him going and committing a mass shooting? It's not like it's not like him not being on Twitter would have being kicked off of Twitter would have prevented a mass shooting. That doesn't make any sense. So that doesn't. I don't understand what she's making. What point she's trying to make there. And then so Warren responds by saying that she doesn't want to just push Donald Trump. She doesn't want to get rid of Donald Trump on Twitter, but she wants to push him out of the White House. And she talks about how all the big lobbying industries have too much money and influence on the political system, particularly big tech, big agriculture, the gun lobby, Wall Street, big pharma, and she claims how she will not be taking donations from those entities. And then they just go further on and on. So it's clear that they were both looking pretty stupid in that exchange because Warren was just completely evading Kamala's attempts at being her typical prosecutorial self there, and pressing her and shit on that. So and what's her name was, evading all the questions like a like a lawyer would, like a defense attorney. But yeah, it's this focus that Kamala Harris has on this it's really petty and stupid, and I just think it's her. Aside from the fact that she might have a case regarding Donald Trump violating the terms of service, I think it's just her way of just trying to pretend how she's taking on Donald Trump. I don't think she really truly cares about how Twitter is, how powerless people are not treated as fairly as the powerful. She doesn't give a shit about that kind of stuff. If she truly cared about that stuff, would she be jailing people, people that smoke weed, putting them in jail as when she was Attorney General and what was the DA of San Francisco? Would she be throwing innocent people into jail, or people that smoke marijuana, or keeping people on death row when evidence showed that they shouldn't have been there in the first place? Like her. Not only is this specific shtick pathetic, but the shtick of her pretending to stand up for the power, standing up against the powerful for the powerless is, it's so transparent. You can see it's an act. She doesn't give a shit about that stuff. If she truly cared, she would have stood up for the people that she was constantly throwing into jail. She's a fucking prosecutor, whatever you want to call her, but she was throwing people into jail for bullshit fucking reasons, and then now all of a sudden she's pretending as if she's standing up for us regular folk out there. Get the fuck out of here, man. You don't give a shit about what we're going through. If you really, really cared, you wouldn't have been doing what you were doing when you were Attorney General and locking up people and then basically just going along with your day and pretending you're going along with your job as if you're doing the right thing. Oh, I was just doing my job. Yeah, you did a terrible job doing your job. So for anybody to think that you would be standing up for regular people as president, let alone doing it as Attorney General, if you think we're truly going to fall for that, you got another thing coming.